Welcome. Thank you for joining me this afternoon for Fearless Date and Time Formulas. My name is Beth Breisness. I'm a developer at salesforce.org. This is like the fifth or sixth time I've done some version of this presentation about formulas. I'm super passionate about empowering admins to really think programmatically just in formulas. So thank you all for joining me to level up your formula game. I will be talking about some roadmap-y things when we get to the time section, so please take note of the forward-looking statement and only make purchasing decisions based on things that are currently generally available. All right, who has at least one custom date field in your org? Yes, that's what I expect. Pretty much every hand in the room. We all care about dates. We have birthdays and memberships and expiry dates and contract dates and programs and anniversaries, and it goes on and on. I'm sure you could all name 10 more examples of a custom date field use case. And now we also have time. So who cares about time? Do any of you yet have a time field in your org? Oh, excellent. Wow. I want to talk to all of you about your use cases after this session. This is super new. We'll get into sort of the journey that time fields have been on in a little bit. But time also super relevant to businesses and organizations, right? We've got business hours, schedules, support analytics. We're going to get into a lot more about that. So here's where we're headed. We'll look at the key date functions that you use in formulas. We will look at leap years. And I think I've realized I'm the only person in the world who associates a frog with leap years, but just go with me on it. We will look at conquering leap years in date formulas. And then finally, we will turn our attention to the new time data type and how that plays out in formulas. But before we look at the date functions, let's just level set on what we're talking about. So we have 3 data types. Today is a tale of 3 data types. We have date, we have date time, which you should all be familiar with, and now, new kid on the block, time. These are 3 different data types, and it can get a little bit confusing, especially between date, time, and time. So we'll get more into that toward the end. But just to level set, these are 3 different kinds of data. We have a date in isolation, a time in isolation, and then the conjunction of those two, a particular time on a particular date. So, formula function machine. This is my favorite analogy when it comes to formulas. All these functions, I like to think about them as a machine. You give it an input, and you get an output. And Astro goes, ta-da. So, who's ever seen this one before when you've been writing a formula? I expect way more hands than that. You're all liars. So when you go to create a new formula, this is the first thing you're presented with. You have to say what data type you are going to craft your formula to return as that ultimate output. Okay, so you can work with other data types within your formula, but ultimately it's going to return one particular data type. And you have to declare that up front. It's literally the first thing it asks you when you go to make a formula. Okay, so choose wisely, because once you get in there, you can't change it. Can always start over, though. And I've done that many times. So let's come back to our inputs and our outputs. This is day, and it should show 2 empty brackets. This is where things are going to get a little funky with my font issues, and I apologize. So what is the input type for the day function? Who knows? Just shout it out. It's a date. You give it a date. What does it give you in return? What's the output? I heard it, a number. Okay, so we're just going to review a whole bunch of these in quick succession. So the day function, you give it a date field, and it's going to give you a number. So what does that look like? If we give day, March 28, 2018, that's today, if my math is correct. What are we going to get out of that formula? 28. All right. How about month? What do you give month? A date. Yeah, these are all very similar. You're going to get this. All right, and it gives you a number. So if we give month, March 28, 2018, what are we going to get back? Everybody together? 3. Excellent. All right, year. You can imagine, same thing. You give it a date. You get out a number. So we give it March 28, 2018. What are we going to get? 2018. Awesome. All right, how about today? What do we give today? Whoa, somebody had it really quick. Nothing, trick question. We don't give it anything. And what data type does it give us in return? A date. Excellent. You're all experts. How about now? He got it first. Oh, hi. We give it nothing, and it gives us a date time. You all had it. You were just on opposite sides. All right. How about date? What do we give date? 3 numbers. You got it over here. We give date 3 different numbers, and we get back a date, as we might expect. So if we give date 2018, 3, and 28, note the order of those, what do we get back? March 28, 2018. Okay, so that's how we're going to construct a date out of numbers. And you can start to see how you can piece these together and use them together to do cool stuff. How about date value? We give it a date time. Excellent. Somebody over here, what do we get out? What data type do we get out as our output? A date. So we give it March 28, 2018 at approximately 1:10. I hope I did that math right. Yeah, excellent. And what are we going to get out? Just the date part. You got it. Okay? So we're stripping bits of our data out. So let's take this for a spin now. Let's take our function machine for a spin. If we do year of today, what are we going to get out? 2018. Awesome. All right, this one looks a little more complicated. When you start to see something like this, I like to work from the inside out. All right? So let's start all the way inside. We have now, and then we're going to take the date value of that, and then we're going to take the month of that. So what are we going to get out? Yes, awesome. You guys are great. All right, so when we come to actually putting these together to do interesting formulas with our dates, people often say, but date math is easy, Beth. Why do we need to worry about this? So if we have October 1st plus 5, we're going to get October 6th, right, as you would expect. However, am I missing one there? No, all right, sorry. So if we have October 1st plus 364, what are we going to get? Oh, you're getting ahead of me, Mr. Ray. What do we get? We're going to get September 30th, right? But what if that October 1st were October 1st, 2015? If we do plus 364, we're going to get September 29. What happened to September 30th? It got eaten by the leap year. All right, so let's turn our attention to leap years. Let's figure out how to conquer these leap years in our formulas. So, without shouting out any of the rules, how many of you know exactly when leap years happen and could tell me the rules if I actually asked you to? I see like 1, 2 hands. That's about what I expect. I'm going to tell all the rest of you a secret is that you're okay because you don't actually need to know any of the rules for when leap years happen to conquer leap years in formulas. I'm going to show you 3 rules, and if you obey these rules in your formulas, you don't need to know when leap years actually happen, and your formulas will always behave around leap years. And you will never end up every 4 years with all your date formulas getting all wonky. So, our 3 rules: inputs, outputs, time spans. Any date used in your formula might be a leap day. Somebody is born on February 29th, right? That's going to happen. It does happen. Somebody joins your organization on February 29th. It's going to happen. You need to account for that eventuality. Outputs. The result might be a leap day, right? The output might fall on a February 29th. We're going to account for that. And then time spans. Any period of time referenced to that plus 364 that we just did, it spanned a leap day, and we have to account for that. Okay, so if you follow those 3 rules, and I'll walk you through a few formulas to show you how to do that, your formulas will behave around leap days. So let's dig into our first one. I'm going to refer to my notes so that I do not misspeak. So let's break this one down. We're going to calculate, we're going to do that plus 364 idea that we had in our example, right? Except we're going to do it right. So the idea is adding 1 year minus 1 day to a date. So right off the bat, on the first line, we're going to check if they joined on a leap day. So if the month of our join date is 2, and the day of our join date is 29. See how we're starting to piece together these functions that we reviewed. And if that's the case, you all know how an if function works, I think, right? If this, then that, otherwise that, okay? So now we're into the then that. So if they joined on a leap day, we need to add 365 days. We know that. That's going to give us February 28th on the following year. Otherwise that. If they did not join on a leap day, then what we're going to do is take their join date, put it into the following year, that's the year join date plus 1, and you see we're wrapping that in a date function. We're giving it 3 numbers. And then there's that little -1 at the bottom. We're going to back it up a day. Plus 1 year, minus 1 day. And that way, we don't need to know if that year spans a leap day. We're not saying plus 364 or 365. We're just saying take that same day in the following year and back it up a day. That's their expiry date. Okay? So that is a rock-solid formula that has a lot of patterns that you can apply in your orgs to make your date formulas impervious to that leap year gremlin. So this is a good stage to take a picture if you want with the highlighting. I like my highlighting. Yeah?
If the joint day year is a leap year and it's February 29th, then in that purple section, then
You never hit that if they joined on February 29th. If they joined on February 29th, you only hit the red. Yeah. No. Yeah. No worries. All right, let's look at another example. We want their birthday. Don't take a picture right now. This is a terrible formula. This is the cautionary tale. So we want to calculate one of your constituents' birthdays, right? But we want their birthday this year. But this is the bad way to do this. You might think, okay, we just take the month and the day, and we put it into this year of today. But what if their birthday is already passed this year? Then that's an irrelevant birthday, right? And what if they were born on a leap day, and this isn't a leap year? That's going to give you a big fat error, okay? So let's think about this differently. Let's think about next birthday. That's what's relevant. I need to know when to touch this constituent, right, on their next birthday. So this one looks a lot more complicated, but we'll walk through it. So we start, again, checking for that leap day. So if the month of their birthday is 2 and the day of their birthday is 29, hey, they're a leapling. Did you know that that's the word for someone born on a leap day? They're a leapling. So they're a leap year baby. So if that's the case, we're going to check for something else. Is today is the 60th day of this year greater than today? So we're basically checking if we've already passed what would be their birthday, which is like February 29 or March 1st. So in this way, by using just the 60th day of the year, so January 1st plus 59, we don't have to know if this is a leap year, right? We're just saying the 60th day of the year. It's this magical day. And so if the 60th day of the year, which would theoretically be their birthday, is greater than today, so we know that their birthday is still in the future. Greater than is future when you're dealing with dates, right? So if that's the case, whoop, wrong direction. We are going to take, hang on, I want to make sure I say this right. We're going to take the year of today, and so their next birthday is the 60th day of this year. That's what this is saying. So the date, if the top line is their 60th day of this year, and the bottom line of the purple is the 60th day of next year, right? Because we were checking if their birthday has already passed this year. Sorry. If they're not a leapling, so now we're into the second half of the first if statement. Following me? So we're in the second half of the blue if statement. We're going to do the same thing, but we're just checking against their actual birthday instead of the 60th day of the year magical date. Okay? So by pulling out this exceptional case of the leapling and using the 60th day of the year, we don't have to know if it's a leap year. So it's the same pattern, putting it either their birthday in this year or their birthday in next year, depending on if their birthday has already passed. All right? And I'll post these as well. All right, you made it through. That's another rock-solid formula with some good patterns. 60th day of the year. You'll all remember that now. So, to conquer leap years, which you will now all associate with frogs, you have to worry about your inputs, your outputs, and your time spans. Easy enough? All right. So before I turn my attention to time, this is actually an upgrade since I gave this presentation at Dreamforce last year. Our formula function machine has gotten a really super awesome upgrade. We now have Weekday. Oh, I'm so excited about this. Okay, I'm such a nerd. What do you think we give Weekday? A date? What do you think we get out? A number that represents the day of the week. This is so exciting. Okay, sorry. So if we give this March 28th, I'm going to show you why this is so exciting in a second, and you're all going to agree with me. If we give it March 28, 2018, what are we going to get out? And Europeans, I'm sorry, this is a bit North American-centric. What are we going to get? Guesses? I heard it over here. We're going to get 4, so we start counting on Sunday. Sunday is 1. Sorry. Sorry, Europeans. So how many of you have seen or used this pattern in your formulas before? Thank you. At least a few hands shooting up. Of those of you who just raised your hands, did you actually understand what you were doing? Thank you. Honesty, I love it. She shook her head vigorously. No. This is a pattern that shows up in a whole bunch of date formulas that are out online in official documentation, in blogs, everywhere. And all this does is what that weekday function does. So we don't have to mess with this anymore. You don't have to be like, I think this is, I'm just going to copy and paste this and trust the blogs. No. So this, you're going to get a bonus. You're going to learn case as well if you didn't know this one. But in the past, that line that just has weekday of my date, we had to have this whole bonkersness, right? And we don't anymore. Now we get to just do this. So what I want is to turn that number that the weekday function returns into the word of the day of the week. This is how we do that. So this is what's the output return type of this function? Text. This is a text formula that is going to take a date field and return the word of the day of the week that lands on. Okay? So case is check this thing, and then if it equals this, do this. If it equals this, do this. If it equals this, do this. It's a whole bunch of pairs. That's why the line breaks work like this. Okay, so we're going to do case. We're going to look at the weekday of my date, and then we're going to do all those pairs. And then case has to have a like, if it doesn't equal any of those things, what should I do? And we're just going to return a null string. And then what that returns is this. Yay! I was so excited about that. All right, one more. In our first upgrade to our formula function machine, add months. This is so exciting for admins. I'm sorry. Developers have been able to do this in Apex for years. Add months, 3, you're done, right? But admins couldn't do this until the winter release. So you can do this now. You have the power. You give it a date and a number, and it gives you a date, just like you would hope, I hope. Yeah, yes. So if we give it March 28, 2018, and 3, separated by a comma in the actual syntax, what are we going to get? April, May, June. June 28, 2018. Okay? So let's just take a look at what that means. Yeah. I'm going to get there. You're ahead of me. It was a great question. What happens if it's on the 31st? I'm actually going to give you an even more exceptional scenario. So add months, my date, comma, 3. This is what it would look like in your formula. And you would get this. So it's a date formula, in this case called next quarter. I pass in that top date, my date, and I get 6/28. And the question was, what happens if it's on the 31st? Well, I'll give you an even better one. What happens if it's February 28th? If it's the last day of the month, it assumes that what you care about is that it's the last day of the month. Okay? So this is a little bit, there's some behavior there for you to think about carefully as an admin before you use this. But that's what it'll do. Okay? So if it's February 28th, and 2018 is not a leap year, so that's it. That's the last day of the month. You will get May 31st. May 30? Wait. No, that's right, 31st. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. No, I just used February as the example to make the point that it's if it falls on the last day. So like, September 30th, add 1 month is going to give you October 31st. It won't give you October 30th, even though that does exist. So it's going to give you the same day in that month, unless it's the last day of the month. It'll just give you the last day of that month. All right. Yeah. That's a great point that I really should have pointed out. You can put that 3 could be negative. That'll take a -3. Yeah, great point. Yep. So are you telling me that formula I had earlier is actually totally irrelevant now, and I could just do add months 12 and then subtract a day? I bet you're right. Somebody give this woman a job. I bet you're totally right. I'm going to test that. Yeah, I might have to update this again. So yeah, go experiment with that. But yeah, this is huge for admins, right? This was on the Idea Exchange for a long time. All right, let's finally catch up with our new kid on the block, time. So a bunch of you actually, said you already have time fields in your orgs, and that is awesome. Time has been a long time coming. It was pilot last summer. You had to talk to your AE. It was private beta in winter. You still had to talk to your AE. It was public beta in spring. And it is going GA in summer 18, forward-looking statement. But it should be GA in this summer release. So you can play with it now. Definitely play in your sandboxes first. But you can get it in production as of spring. All right? And it is public. So when you go to create a new custom field, way down at the bottom, you see this little time, and it does still say beta. Nice red tag to remind you that it is well, I'll tell you exactly what that means in a second. So, long time coming. This screenshot is actually about a year old. It currently will say 11 years ago if you go to it. So I really want to meet Jonathan Schlinkert. I just think that would be cool. See what he thinks about this finally getting. I hope he still uses Salesforce. I don't know. So this is a screenshot from a project I did a couple years ago where we really needed time. And I see it nodding heads. Like, we had to use these crazy pick lists, and these are just text. They're useless. It's terrible. And what this looks like on the back end, this is only part of that. Like, it keeps going. Like, that's maybe a third of the values that you have to maintain as an admin. This is terrible. So what we have now is like actual time fields. This is so cool. They won't look quite this nice until the summer release. This is a summer 18 org that I took this screenshot from in Lightning. They look a little funky right now because they're just showing you the GMT value. But in summer, this is what they're going to look like. And they're gorgeous. And you note what's different on the right. 24-hour time. So what I did was I changed my locale to English UK. And it just displays it in English UK style. It just works. It just works. It's great. I was super impressed with that. So this is what beta means. It is a high-quality feature with known limitations. So please go to the Trailblazer community. There is a custom time field group. I think that's exactly what it's called. And you can read there and in the release notes as well what those known limitations are. They are fewer and fewer with every release, and it will be GA in summer. All right, so this is our second upgrade to our formula function machine. We have new functions that come with time. So what do you think we pass? Hour. This might feel familiar. Month, day, year. We now have hour, minute, second. All right, so what do we give hour? Time. And what do we get out? A number. So if we give this 11:30, what are we going to get out? 11. All right, minute, same idea? Yeah. We're going to get there, and I'm not going to have good news. I'm sorry. All right, sort of. So if we do minute, we give this, we're going to get 30. And if we do second, we give it time. We're going to get a number. It's going to give us 0. Yeah. You would do, you're 2 ahead of me. Wait, so time now, same thing as now. I'm going to rush a little bit because we started late. So time now, give it nothing, get out a time of like right now. Time value is what you're looking for. Yeah, so you give time value a date time, and it strips off the time portion, just like date value stripped off the date portion. So if we give, now here's where it gets funky. If we give it this time, or this date time rather, we will get 11:34 and 17 seconds. But note the GMT. So here's where we're going to talk about date time versus time. This is date time. Note each clock is showing a different time, but it's all the same moment, right? It's all the same moment in the universe, as I like to call it. So you need to know the system will render a date time in the local time. It knows the offset of your user. It knows what time zone your user is in, all of that. This is time. It is a clock with no batteries. It is a clock that you take the thingy in the back and you set it to a certain time and you say, 11:30, everywhere. Doesn't matter where I take that clock. I can fly that clock to London. It's still going to say 11:30, right? So think about time as a clock with no batteries. So if you're coming from date time, or you're coming from now, or time now, the system has to make an assumption about where you are, right? So you're going to get GMT, London, UTC, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so that sort of answers your question. But we'll look at what that looks like in a formula and how you actually account for that, okay? So let's test some of these out. Hour of time now. 20, right? Because it's GMT. So it's 13, because 1 o'clock, 1 p.m., 1,300 hours, plus 7 to get us to London. So 20 is what that returns, okay? So we got to be a little bit careful. Let's look at a couple formulas. Calculating total business hours. So on an account, you have a time open field and a time closed field. Pretty good use case for just a straight time field. That's not a date time. They open at that same time every day, right? It's just a clock. So how many hours are they open each day? Time closed minus time open divided by, I can never remember, 3,600,000. It's hard to read without the commas, but you don't have commas in a formula. So what's that 3,600,000 thing about? Anybody? A few of you said milliseconds. So I'm trying to return this into hours, right? And so 1 hour is 60 minutes, is 3,600 seconds, is 3.6 million milliseconds. So admins, get ready to get really good at millisecond math. Write that down on a Post-it note and stick it on your desk, because you're going to do it a lot. All right? So pretty straightforward, though, right? If any of you saw this presentation at Dreamforce, it was not as straightforward in that release. So we've had some progress. It's great. So you can also do, and I don't have an example for this one, but you can also do a time plus or minus a number. So if you wanted to do like, you had an open time and then a duration, and you want to calculate the close time, right? Like do it that way instead. The number that you add or subtract from your start time is also in milliseconds. So you also have to account for that in your formulas. Okay, so you can also do a time plus or minus a number of milliseconds, and it will return a time. Pretty handy. Oh, so this is what that would look like. All right, 8:30 a.m., close at 5 p.m. That means they're open 8.5 hours. Yes? Yes, yes. If you just, the question was, if you just did time close minus time open, the answer would be in milliseconds, which I think you would figure out pretty quickly what you did. You're like, whoa, that's a lot of hours. All right, let's do one more example. Check if reps are calling customers at their preferred time. So in this scenario, we're going to imagine that on a contact, we have a preferred time field that represents the top of the hour that they wish to be called at. All right? And we want to check if they're creating cases outside of that contact's preferred time. It's a relatively contrived example, I grant you that, but just go with me. So our formula field is going to return a checkbox. And we're going to compare the created date of the case to the preferred time off the contact, because we're going to use time value of the created date. I'm going to read through this one. So this chunk in the middle is just to get that created date into the local time for GMT -7, which is Pacific. So this one does not support multi-time zone orgs. It also doesn't support daylight savings time. So there's potentially some work that's going to happen around returning the time value of a date time in the user's local time. Massive forward-looking statement on that. Okay? It's on their radar. It's on the team's radar. We know it would be valuable, but this is what we can do now. It does work. So we're going to take, all right, hang on. So when we do the hour of the time value of the created date, we're getting that GMT number. So we subtract 7 to get that to local time. But because clocks don't account for negative numbers, they don't go into negative numbers, but they rather go back around to 24, we have to first check if that made us negative, less than 0, negative. And if so, we're going to add 24 to that and then subtract 7. Otherwise, we'll just use that GMT value -7. So all of that just to get the local hour. And then we just compare it to the preferred time off the contact. And if they're equal, this field would be false. And if it was outside of the preferred time, it would be checked, and you would flag it as a bad case. Does that make sense? I know the local time thing is not awesome. But we live in the future. So get creative in your sandboxes. Be very careful mixing date time and time in formulas, because we have to account for our time zones. And then please, please, please provide feedback and share ideas and tips in the Trailblazer community group for custom time. Awesome. That is all I have. Thank you for coming. You were awesome about asking questions as we went, but I would be happy to take more questions. Yeah, over here.
Today, when we use a date time field as a row heading or a column heading in a report, you only get the dates, you don't get any of the time.
Okay. Yeah.
Behavior of the time field is reports.
In summer, it shows the time, I believe.
If it uses a row or a column heading,
Yeah, it should. Test it as soon as you can get into a sandbox preview of summer. I haven't checked, but I think it should work.